Ever lay there at like 2 a.m. knowing you need sleep, but your brain decides it's party time? Replaying every awkward moment, every what if, ugh, the worst.
It's like our minds have a talent for terrible timing.
Right. So, to tackle this, we're diving into coping with anxiety-induced insomnia. No fluffy sheep counting here. We're getting into the nitty-gritty.
Love it, because knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something as essential as sleep.
Okay, so let's break it down. What's the deal with stress and sleep? Is it really deeper than just not being able to relax?
Way deeper. It's like this. When we're stressed, our body's like woolly mammoth attack. Fight or flight mode kicks in.
Except most days, the mammoth is just a looming deadline, right?
Exactly. Our bodies haven't quite caught up to modern life, so we get this surge of cortisol, the stress hormone, which is great for, well, outrunning danger, but terrible for sleep.
So that's why I feel simultaneously exhausted but wired at bedtime.
Bingo. The guide calls it this vicious cycle. Lack of sleep actually makes anxiety worse, and then more anxiety keeps you up. It's a mess.
Hold on, so it's not just me being bad at sleeping, it's this whole biological loop. That's weirdly reassuring, actually.
Right. Huge relief to know it's not just you. But that also means we gotta get strategic about breaking the cycle.
Absolutely. But before we even get there, how do we know if it's really anxiety causing the sleepless nights? What if there's something else?
That's where we play detective. The guide says look for these clues. Trouble falling asleep. Mind racing.
Yeah, classic anxiety.
Yeah.
Then there's the tossing and turning like your body can't get comfy, and the super vivid nightmares. Not fun.
Okay, yep. Those are all too familiar. Definitely not helping with the whole getting a good night's sleep thing. Not even a little. And honestly, the guide doesn't sugarcoat it. Chronic sleep deprivation doesn't just make us cranky, it cranks up the anxiety even more.
So how does that work? What's the link there?
Think about it. When you're sleep deprived, what happens? You're tired, right? Difficulty focusing, mood swings, all that fun stuff.
And it's like those things just amplify every little stressor.
Exactly. It's like trying to fight a boss battle on an empty energy bar. We need sleep to handle stress effectively.
So we're not just tired, we're tired and out. Less equipped to deal with the stuff that's keeping us up. That's brutal.
It's a recipe for disaster, which is why we got to break the cycle. We can't just hope it magically goes away.
And the cool thing is, this guide doesn't just tell us we're messed up, it gives us tools to fix it. Okay, so less doom scrolling before bed, got it. But what are we supposed to do instead? I need something to actually shut my brain off.
Well, the guide says that's where that calming nighttime routine comes in. Think of it like this. You wouldn't run a marathon without stretching first, right?
True. Although, full disclosure, I don't run marathons.
Yeah.
But I get the idea.
Right, so we got to prep our brains for sleep, just like an athlete preps for a big game.
Love that analogy. So what's on the pre-sleep training schedule?
First up, dimming the lights about an hour before bed. That means phones away, laptops closed, all that blue light screams daytime to your brain.
The phone is my weakness. I swear it multiplies in my hand after 9 p.m.
It's a common trap. The guide also says to swap stimulating stuff for calming stuff in the evening. Like, instead of frantic emails, try some gentle stretching, herbal tea, maybe some relaxing reading.
Okay, that actually sounds kind of nice. Like intentionally telling your body it's chill time, not go time.
Exactly. It all goes back to those hormones, remember? We want melatonin for sleep, not more of that cortisol keeping us up.
Right, the sleep saboteur. Okay, so we're basically hacking our biology with a strategically relaxing evening. I can get behind that.
It's amazing what a difference it can make. Now, there's another strategy in the guide that, honestly, I was a little skeptical of at first.
Oh, tell me more.
Mindfulness. I always thought it was a bit too, out there for me. But this guide really breaks it down in a practical way.
I get that. Mindfulness can seem a little intimidating, like you need to be some kind of Zen master to do it right.
Right. But it's really not about emptying your mind completely, which, let's be honest, is pretty much impossible, especially when you're already anxious.
Exactly. So what is it then?
The guide describes it as changing your relationship to your thoughts. So instead of getting all tangled up in those thoughts, you learn to just notice them without judgment and then gently redirect your attention back to the present moment.
Okay, so less battling the thoughts and more observing them from a distance, like, oh, there's that worry again, how interesting.
Exactly. And the guide gives some cool techniques for doing just that. Have you ever tried a body scan meditation?
Body scan. Okay, that sounds a little intense, like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It's not, I promise. You basically lie down and just bring your attention to your body, slowly scanning from your toes to your head, just noticing any sensations without trying to change them.
Interesting. I've never thought about it like that. I can see how that could be really grounding.
It's amazing how much tension we hold in our bodies without even realizing it. And sometimes just acknowledging those sensations can help release them.
It's like hitting the reset button on your nervous system. Love it.
All right. Another technique the guide mentions is guided imagery.
Oh, I love guided imagery. It's like daydreaming, but with a purpose.
Exactly. And it can be incredibly powerful for sleep. The guide emphasizes the importance of making it personal. What does your peaceful place look like? What do you see, hear, smell? The more vivid the image, the more effectively you can transport yourself away from those anxious thoughts.
I have this go-to image of a hammock strung between two palm trees on a deserted beach. The sound of the waves, the feel of the warm breeze. Instant relaxation.
It's like having a mental escape room, but for anxiety.
Exactly. No pricey vacations required. Okay, so we've got relaxing evening routines, mindfulness techniques, but what if none of that is enough? What if the anxiety is just too strong?
That's a great point, and the guide acknowledges that these self-help strategies might not work for everyone. Sometimes we need a little extra support, and that's totally okay.
So what does it recommend for those situations?
Well, it talks about cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, as a really effective option for treating anxiety-induced insomnia.
CBT, okay. I've definitely heard of it, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it involves. Is it just talk therapy?
It's more than just talking. It's about actively changing those thought patterns and behaviors that are keeping you stuck in that anxiety cycle.
So it's like rewiring your brain to respond differently to those triggers.
Exactly. It's like learning a new set of skills for managing anxiety and improving your sleep.
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh.
So what does CBT actually look like in practice?
One of the key things CBT helps you do is identify your specific anxiety triggers, especially those related to sleep. So, those thoughts that pop up just as you're trying to drift off of like, what if I can't sleep? What if I'm exhausted tomorrow?
Oh, yes. Those are the worst.
Right. And once you've identified those triggers, CBT provides you with tools to challenge and reframe those negative thought patterns.
So instead of getting swept away by those what-if spirals, you learn to hit them with a big, fat, so what?
Precisely. It's about shifting your perspective. So instead of thinking, what if I can't sleep? You might reframe that to, even if I don't get a solid 8 hours tonight, I can still have a productive day tomorrow.
Okay, that's a really good example. It's like instead of letting those anxious thoughts run the show, CBT gives you the tools to be the director of your own mind.
I love that analogy. You become the bouncer of your own thoughts, choosing which ones to let in and which ones to show the door.
I love that. It's so empowering. It's not about eliminating anxiety altogether, because let's be real, that's probably impossible, but it's about changing how we relate to it, how we respond to it.
Absolutely. It's about taking back your power from those anxious thoughts and making sleeplessness a thing of the past.
So let's say someone is interested in trying CBT. What does the guide say about finding a therapist?
It emphasizes the importance of finding a therapist who specializes in CBT, particularly for insomnia and anxiety. Ideally, someone who's licensed and trained in CBT and has experience treating those specific issues.
It also mentions getting recommendations from mental health groups or support networks, which can be super helpful because finding the right therapist can be tough.
Definitely. Word of mouth can be invaluable, especially when it comes to something as personal as therapy.
Now, before we wrap up this section, I'm curious about something else the guide touches on: natural remedies.
Yeah.
I'm always up for trying new things, especially when it comes to natural approaches.
Oh, absolutely. The guide has a whole section on that.
Perfect. So what kind of natural sleep aids are we talking about? Hit me with your favorites.
Well, the classic chamomile tea is in there, the go-to bedtime beverage.
Okay, sure, but I want to go a little deeper than chamomile is calming. What's the actual science behind it?
So chamomile contains this compound called apigenin, which is believed to bind to certain receptors in your brain that promote sleepiness and reduce anxiety.
No way. So it's not just a placebo effect, there's actual science behind it. I'm sold.
Right. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, there's lavender essential oil, which has been used for centuries for its calming effects.
I've heard of that. Putting a few drops on your pillow before bed.
Right, exactly. You can use it in aromatherapy, just inhaling the scent, or even through direct absorption through the skin.
Interesting. It's like a double whammy of relaxation.
Precisely.
But it's important to remember, these natural remedies, while they can be great additions to our sleep toolkit, aren't magic bullets.
Exactly. And the guide makes that very clear. These natural approaches work best when combined with other strategies. You know, like establishing a consistent sleep schedule, creating that relaxing bedtime routine we talked about, and of course, addressing that underlying anxiety.
Right? It's all connected.
It is. Think of it like this. Natural remedies can be that extra boost, that little something extra to enhance the effectiveness of those other strategies, but they're not meant to replace them entirely.
So it's about taking a holistic approach, not just relying on one quick fix.
Exactly. It's about addressing the problem from multiple angles and finding what works best for you.
So we've got all these tools, these strategies, but it makes you wonder, what if we're so busy trying to make the anxiety go away that we miss what it's trying to tell us?
It's like our anxiety is waving its arms, trying to get our attention, and we're just trying to get it to be quiet.
And maybe if we actually stopped and listened, we'd learn something important.
Exactly. What if those sleepless nights, those racing thoughts, they're not the enemy, but messengers?
Okay, I like where you're going with this. So instead of just banishing the anxiety, we should be trying to understand it.
It's like that saying, the body whispers before it screams. Maybe anxiety is that whisper, trying to tell us something's off.
Wow, that's a powerful way to think about it. So instead of dreading those sleepless nights, we can see them as opportunities for what? Self-discovery.
Exactly. A chance to dig a little deeper and understand what's really going on beneath the surface.
Okay, so next time I'm lying awake at 3 a.m., instead of freaking out, I should try. But talking to my anxiety.
You could try that. But even just acknowledging it can be helpful. Like, okay, anxiety, I hear you. You're really fired up about something right now.
Instead of trying to force it away, which never seems to work anyway.
Right. It's like trying to push a beach ball underwater. It's just going to pop up somewhere else.
So we acknowledge it, we listen to it, and then what? How do we figure out what it's trying to tell us?
Start by asking yourself some questions. What thoughts or worries are swirling around in your mind? What emotions are coming up?
And I guess most importantly, what can you learn from those thoughts and emotions?
Exactly. It's like you're a detective gathering clues to solve the mystery of your anxiety. What needs your attention? What needs to change?
Wow, that is a lot to think about. But it's also incredibly hopeful. It means that we have the power to not only manage our anxiety, but to actually learn and grow from it.
And isn't that ultimately what we all want? To live richer, more fulfilling lives. And sometimes that journey starts with a good night's sleep.
Well said. So, to our listeners, the next time you find yourself struggling with those anxious thoughts, remember, those are not roadblocks, but signposts. They're pointing you towards something that needs your attention. Listen to them, learn from them, and most importantly, be kind to yourself along the way.
Because you are capable of finding peace both in your mind and in your sleep.
And on that note, sleep well, everyone.